Lena lived on the quiet outskirts of Nova Colony. Her small home sat on a gentle hill overlooking the silver plains that stretched far beyond the horizon. Life in the colony was peaceful but not easy. Resources were limited, and families had to work hard to survive. Lena's family had always managed, but lately, life had become more difficult. Her mother had fallen ill, and her strength was fading day by day. Lena tried everything she could, preparing special meals and keeping her mother warm. But she knew she needed more food and medicine than she could afford. Every morning, Lena would leave her small home and walk toward the central market. The market was a lively place full of humans and a few aliens who lived in the colony. Humans sold fruits, vegetables, grains, and small tools. Aliens brought unique items from their home planets, and everyone traded with care and respect. Among the human vendors was Tom, a young man with a warm smile and honest eyes. He ran a small food stall that offered bread, fresh fruits, and baked goods. Tom was known for his fairness and kindness. He always made sure that no one left his stall hungry, even if they could not pay the full price. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the purple hills and painted the sky in shades of orange and red, Tom noticed a strange movement near his stall. A small figure crouched by his goods. At first he thought it might be a child playing, but then he realized it was an alien girl. Her skin shimmered with a faint green glow under the evening light. Her eyes were large, amber-colored, and filled with both fear and determination. Her fingers were delicate and nimble, moving faster than any human child could. Tom's first instinct was to shout, but something in her expression stopped him. She was not reckless or careless. Her movements were careful, almost respectful. She reached for a loaf of bread and a small packet of dried fruits. Her hands trembled slightly and she looked around nervously before picking up the items. Tom stayed hidden, curious rather than angry. He watched her as she froze for a moment, glanced toward him, and then ran. Her small feet barely made a sound on the cobblestones. The next day, Tom could not stop thinking about the girl. He returned to his stall earlier than usual, arranging his food carefully. Late in the afternoon, he saw her again. This time, she took only a small piece of bread and a fruit packet. Tom decided to follow her quietly, keeping a safe distance. He did not want to scare her or make her feel threatened. She moved quickly but carefully, darting between market stalls and finally heading toward the abandoned tunnels at the edge of the colony. Tom hesitated for a moment, then followed. The tunnels were narrow and dimly lit, stretching beneath the colony like a hidden network. Tom kept a careful pace, using his lantern to light the path without startling the girl. Finally, they reached a small chamber carved into the rock. Tom's eyes widened. The room was simple but clean. On a low bed of soft cloths lay an elderly alien woman. She was thin and frail, her breathing shallow and uneven. Her eyes, though weak, sparkled with warmth and love as she looked at the small figure beside her. The alien girl knelt and gently placed the stolen food on the floor. She helped her mother sit up slightly and offered a piece of bread, which the woman accepted with a soft smile. Tom understood immediately. The girl was not a thief in the usual sense. She was taking food to care for her sick mother. A mix of admiration and compassion filled him. He quietly stepped back, careful not to disturb them. Seeing such devotion and courage in someone so small and young made him realize how universal the love for family could be. It did not matter if someone was human or alien. The bond between a child and a parent was something everyone could understand. For several days, Tom continued to watch from a distance. The girl, whose name he later learned was Zyra, repeated the routine every evening. She moved quickly, always careful, always respectful. Tom noticed how tired she looked, how her small frame carried the weight of responsibility far beyond her years. He began to worry for her safety. The tunnels were dark and sometimes dangerous. If something happened, who would help her? One night after Zyra left the chamber and disappeared into the shadows, Tom made a decision. He returned to his stall and prepared a small bundle of food, a loaf of fresh bread, some fruits, and a packet of dried grains. He placed it in a hidden corner of the market where she usually appeared, hoping she would find it. Zyra arrived as usual, her eyes scanning the market for any sign of danger. When she spotted the bundle, her eyes widened. She picked it up cautiously, her fingers brushing against the soft cloth Tom had used to wrap the food. She looked around nervously, then slowly turned toward the stall. Tom stepped out from behind a stack of crates and raised his hands gently in a peaceful gesture. "I know why you take food," Tom said softly. You don't have to do it anymore. Take this instead. No one will stop you. Zira froze for a moment. Fear and relief mixed in her eyes. Slowly, she nodded and accepted the bundle. She did not speak, but her gaze was filled with gratitude. Tom smiled, understanding that actions could speak louder than words. The trust between them had begun. In the following days, this quiet exchange continued. Tom left bundles of food, carefully hidden, and Zira accepted them without hesitation. He never tried to confront her or demand explanations. Instead, he focused on helping in his own way. The young girl began to trust him, and Tom began to understand the world from her perspective. He learned how she moved quietly through the colony, how careful she was to avoid being seen, and how much effort she put into caring for her mother. Slowly, Tom began to see Zira not as a stranger or a thief, but as someone brave and full of love. He realized that humanity was not just about strength or intelligence. It was about empathy, kindness, and the courage to help those in need. Watching Zira, he felt a sense of pride in his species. Humans had the ability to make a difference, even in the smallest ways. By the end of the week, Tom had prepared extra food every day. He started leaving it earlier, ensuring Zira would not have to risk running through the streets in the dark. She discovered the bundles with careful excitement each evening, always looking around to make sure no one noticed her. Her mother's health slowly improved with the steady supply of food, and Tom felt a quiet satisfaction knowing he had made a positive difference in their lives. For the first time in a long while, Tom felt that the world was not only about survival. It was about connection, about reaching out across differences and helping when it mattered most. He knew that Zira's small acts of courage, combined with his willingness to help, could create something bigger, a bond between humans and aliens, built on trust and compassion. That evening, as the twin moons rose over Nova Colony, casting a soft silver glow over the hills, Tom watched Zira disappear into the tunnels. He felt a strange warmth in his heart. He had met someone remarkable, someone who reminded him of the power of love and devotion. He understood that the story of a small alien girl and her sick mother could inspire more than just a single act of kindness. It could show the true strength of humanity. After the first evening when Tom had left a bundle of food for Zira, he could not stop thinking about her and her mother. He had watched her risk so much moving through the busy market, always careful not to be seen. Every time he thought of her tiny figure slipping through the crowd, carrying food for her sick mother, he felt a mixture of admiration and concern. He knew that he could not stand by and do nothing. Humans had the ability to help, and he realized that he wanted to make a difference. The next morning, Tom arrived at his stall earlier than usual. The market was still quiet, with only a few vendors setting up their goods. He carefully arranged his breads, fruits, and vegetables, making sure everything looked fresh and inviting. Then he took a small bundle of extra food, wrapping it in soft cloth to protect it. He placed the bundle in a corner of his stall, hidden from the main walkway where Zira often appeared. By afternoon, the market was busier. Traders shouted greetings, children ran between stalls laughing, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Zira appeared quietly as always. Her green skin shimmered faintly under the sunlight. Her amber eyes scanned the stalls, alert for anyone who might see her. When she noticed the bundle, she hesitated for a moment. She looked around cautiously, then bent down and picked it up carefully. Tom stepped forward gently. "I know why you take the food," he said in a soft voice, careful not to scare her. "You don't have to do it anymore. Take this. No one will stop you." Zira froze. Her eyes widened and she tilted her head slightly. She had expected fear, anger, or punishment, but she saw kindness instead. Slowly, she nodded and accepted the bundle. Her hands trembled slightly as she held it, and a small, grateful smile appeared on her face. Tom smiled back. He could see her trust growing, and it made him feel a warm sense of connection. From that day on, Tom decided to continue helping Zira in secret. Every morning he prepared extra food bundles, including bread, fruits, and dried grains. He placed them in hidden corners of the market, knowing that Zira would find them. She always did. She took the food with care, sometimes glancing toward the stalls as if trying to see who had left it. But she never came close enough to discover him. Tom watched from a distance, satisfied that she and her mother had what they needed. Days turned into weeks and a quiet routine developed. Zira continued to care for her mother diligently, moving through the tunnels with care and determination. She fed her mother, helped her sit up, and prepared small meals from the food bundles. Her mother's strength slowly returned, and her eyes sparkled more brightly each day. Tom noticed the improvement from the few times he peeked into the tunnels, and it gave him a sense of accomplishment and pride. One evening, as Tom was closing his stall, a sudden thought struck him. He realized that Zira was taking great risks to gather the food he had left. The tunnels were not always safe, and there were parts that were dark and uneven. If she slipped or fell, she could get hurt. He could not allow that to happen. He decided that he would accompany her, but he knew he had to do it carefully. He could not force her trust. He needed her to accept his help willingly. The next evening, Tom followed Zira at a distance. She moved quickly but silently through the market, avoiding the larger crowds. She slipped into the tunnels, and Tom lit his lantern, keeping it low so it would not scare her. He watched as she approached the chamber where her mother rested. Suddenly she stopped. Her eyes were wide, and she seemed tense. Tom understood. She was alert to danger, always careful for her mother's sake. He called out softly, "Zira, I am here to help. You do not have to carry everything alone." Zira turned her head quickly, her eyes wide with surprise. She had not expected him to follow her so closely. She stepped back slightly uncertain. Tom lowered his lantern, keeping his voice calm and gentle. "I will not harm you," he said. "I want to help your mother just like you do. Will you let me?" For a moment, Zira hesitated. Then slowly she nodded. Tom smiled, understanding that trust was being built little by little. Together, they moved toward the chamber. Tom carried some of the food while Zira guided him, pointing to the safest path through the tunnels. The two of them worked silently, communicating without many words, relying on gestures and glances. When they reached the chamber, Zira's mother smiled weakly, her eyes lighting up at the sight of her daughter and the stranger who had come to help. Tom placed the food bundles carefully near the bed. Zira helped arrange them, making sure her mother could reach everything easily. For the first time, Tom saw the bond between mother and daughter so clearly, the love, the care, and the dedication that neither words nor species could describe. Over the next few days, their routine continued. Tom visited Zira each evening, helping carry the food and ensuring her mother had what she needed. Zira began to trust him more. She showed small gestures of appreciation, a nod, a soft smile, or placing a small flower from the tunnels near his lantern. Tom realized that kindness could build bridges that words sometimes could not. He felt proud that humans could show empathy, courage, and care, even across species. Other humans in the colony noticed something different too. People began leaving small gifts for Zira and her mother, fruits, clean water, and useful supplies. No one asked questions. It became a quiet, unspoken agreement of kindness. Tom felt proud that humans were showing empathy and generosity, even to those who were different. He understood that this was one of the greatest strengths of humanity, the ability to care without expecting anything in return. One day, while helping Zira arrange the food, Tom asked gently, "What is your mother's name?" Zira hesitated, then pointed to the elderly woman and whispered, "Mira." Tom smiled softly. "Hello, Mira. I am Tom. I am happy to help." Mira's eyes sparkled faintly, and she managed a small nod. Though she was weak, there was gratitude in her gaze that touched Tom deeply. From that day, their small group became a quiet team. Zira, her mother Mira, and Tom worked together in harmony. Zira learned to accept help without feeling afraid or embarrassed. Mira regained some strength and independence, and Tom found purpose in helping. The small acts of kindness created a connection that was stronger than fear, distance, or differences in species. Tom began to think about the future. He realized that Zira's courage and determination were extraordinary. She had risked so much for her mother, showing resilience and devotion beyond her years. He felt inspired. Humans had a strength not only in body or mind, but in heart and spirit. He knew that if people could care for one another like this, no challenge in the universe was too great. Even the other vendors in the market noticed Zira's presence. Though some were initially wary, they began leaving extra food near her usual path. They did not speak of it openly, but a quiet network of care developed. The colony, without even realizing it, was becoming stronger through simple acts of compassion. Tom understood that this small alien girl had not only inspired him, but had also inspired the community. One evening, as the twin moons rose over Nova Colony, casting soft light over the silver plains, Tom watched Zyra carry the food into the chamber. Mira sat up slightly, her weak hands reaching for the bread. Zyra smiled, her amber eyes shining with love and care. Tom felt a sense of satisfaction he had never experienced before. It was not just about helping or giving. It was about seeing the difference one person could make, the hope that kindness could bring to those who needed it most. That night, Tom made a silent promise to himself. He would continue to help Zyra and her mother. He would ensure their safety and provide what he could, even if it required patience and effort. He had learned that courage, compassion, and empathy were not limited by species. Whether human or alien, these qualities could shape lives, create trust, and build communities. For the first time, Tom realized that the story of one small alien girl and her sick mother was not just about survival. It was a story about love, trust, and the power of humans to shine through their actions. He felt proud to be a part of it, knowing that the universe held challenges but also the chance for goodness, understanding, and hope. A few weeks after Tom had begun helping Zyra and her mother, the colony experienced a sudden change in weather. Dark clouds gathered over Nova Colony, and the winds picked up, swirling the dust and debris across the plains. The twin moons disappeared behind the clouds, and the sky turned a deep shade of purple. The market, usually full of life and chatter, grew quiet as the first drops of rain fell. Tom was closing his stall when he felt a sense of worry. He thought of Zyra and her mother, Mira, who were still in the tunnels beneath the colony. He knew the tunnels could be dangerous during storms. Flooding was a risk, and the pathways were uneven and slippery. Without hesitation, he grabbed his lantern and ran toward the entrance of the tunnels. His heart beat fast as he imagined Zyra carrying food, struggling to care for her mother while the storm raged outside. As he entered the tunnels, the air was cool and damp. Water dripped from the walls, forming small puddles along the narrow pathways. Tom held his lantern high, casting a circle of light around him. He moved quickly but carefully, listening for any sound that might tell him where Zyra was. After a few minutes, he heard soft footsteps ahead. He followed the sound and soon saw her figure, small and determined, moving carefully through the dark tunnels. Zyra was carrying a small bundle of food for her mother. Her head bent low as she navigated the slippery floor. Her green skin glowed faintly in the lantern light, and her amber eyes were wide with concentration. When she noticed Tom, she froze for a moment, unsure if he was there to help or to scold her. Tom shook his head gently and said in a calm voice, "I am here to help. You do not have to do this alone tonight." Zyra hesitated, then nodded slowly. She adjusted her grip on the bundle of food, and together they moved through the tunnels. Tom took some of the weight, carrying extra supplies so that Zyra could move faster and more safely. The storm outside grew stronger, and the sound of rain hitting the surface above made the tunnels echo with a soft rumble. Zyra glanced at him once, her eyes reflecting both fear and relief. As they reached a narrow section of the tunnels, water began to seep in from the walls. The floor was slippery, and one wrong step could cause a fall. Tom moved carefully, showing Zyra the safest path. "Step here," he said, pointing to a dry patch. "Hold my hand if you need." Zyra nodded and followed his instructions, trusting him completely. It was a moment that spoke more than words ever could. The trust between two beings from different worlds, working together to protect someone they both cared for. Finally, they arrived at the chamber where Mira lay resting. The room was dimly lit but warm and safe compared to the cold, wet tunnels outside. Zyra helped her mother sit up slightly and offered the food bundle. Mira smiled weakly, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, my daughter," she whispered in her soft alien voice. Zyra smiled back, and Tom could see the relief and happiness in her expression. Tom placed the remaining food on a small table near the bed. He helped organize the supplies, making sure everything was within Mira's reach. "She will be safe now," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "And you, Zyra, will not have to struggle so much." Zyra looked at him and nodded. She understood that his help was genuine and that he cared for both her and her mother. The storm continued outside, but inside the chamber there was a calm sense of safety. Mira reached out and touched Zyra's hand gently. "You have been brave," she said softly, "and he has been kind. Together we are stronger." Tom felt a deep sense of pride. This small family, composed of 2 aliens and a human helper, had faced challenges and come through with courage, care, and trust. It reminded him of the strength of humans, not just their skills or technology, but their ability to show kindness and empathy. Over the next few days, the storm caused disruptions in the colony. Roads were blocked and supplies were harder to reach. Tom continued to leave extra food bundles for Zira, but he also made sure to personally bring water and other essentials. The tunnels had become more dangerous with the storm, and he wanted to ensure that Zira and Mira were safe. Together, they worked to keep the chamber clean, organized, and dry. Zira began to rely more on Tom, not out of necessity alone, but because she trusted him. She still carried some food herself, wanting to care for her mother, but she accepted his help without hesitation. Tom admired her courage and dedication. He realized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite fear. Zira had shown this in every step she took to care for her mother. One evening, as the storm finally began to subside, Tom and Zira sat quietly in the chamber. Mira was resting comfortably, and the room was filled with a peaceful atmosphere. Zira handed Tom a small flower she had found growing in a crack in the tunnel wall. It was simple and delicate, but it carried a message of gratitude. Tom accepted it with a smile. He understood that this gesture, though small, symbolized trust, appreciation, and the bond they had formed. Tom thought about the story he would tell if he were to speak about this experience. He would speak of courage, of kindness, and of the way humans could help others without expecting anything in return. He realized that true strength was not measured by force or power, but by empathy, understanding, and the willingness to help those in need. Zira and Mira had taught him this lesson in the most unexpected way. The storm left the colony transformed. The plains were washed clean, and the air was fresh with the scent of rain. Zira's mother, Mira, had gained more strength than before, thanks to the combined care of her daughter and Tom. Zira herself seemed more confident, knowing that she had an ally who would help her in times of danger. Tom felt a quiet satisfaction. Helping someone, even in small ways, could create bonds that were stronger than fear or distance. As the twin moons rose again, casting a soft silver glow over the colony, Tom looked at Zira and Mira and felt hope. He realized that this experience had changed him. Humans had the ability to shine through their actions to build trust and to make a positive impact on lives beyond their own. He understood that courage and kindness were universal, not limited by species or language. In the following days, the market became more supportive. Other humans and a few aliens began leaving small gifts for Zira and her mother, inspired by the acts of courage and kindness they had witnessed. The colony quietly became a community of care and support, showing that even in difficult times people could come together to help one another. Tom felt proud to be a part of this change. Zira began to communicate more with Tom, using small gestures and simple words she had learned from him. She pointed to items, tried to form sentences, and smiled whenever he praised her efforts. Tom encouraged her, teaching her phrases and showing that learning and communication could strengthen trust. Together they built a silent language of understanding, combining gestures, words, and shared experiences. Mira's health continued to improve steadily. She could sit comfortably, eat independently, and even help Zira with small tasks. The small family had grown stronger, not just physically but in spirit. They had learned that courage, love, and teamwork could overcome challenges that seemed impossible. Tom felt honored to witness their growth and to contribute to it in his own small way. By the end of the week, the storm had passed completely. The tunnels were safe again, and the colony was bustling with life. Tom continued his daily routine, preparing bundles of food and supplies for Zira and Mira, but now with a deeper understanding of what it meant to help. He had learned that true heroism was not about fame or recognition. It was about compassion, trust, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Zira looked at Tom one evening as they arranged the food in the chamber. She smiled, holding his gaze with her bright amber eyes. In that simple moment, Tom realized that humans had the power to make a difference in ways that went beyond technology or strength. The story of a small alien girl, her sick mother, and a human who cared would be remembered, not for its challenges, but for the love, courage, and kindness that had shaped it. After the storm had passed, life in Nova Colony slowly returned to normal. The market was lively again, filled with the sounds of vendors calling out prices and children laughing as they ran between the stalls. Tom continued to manage his small food stall, but he no longer saw Zira merely as the alien girl who had been stealing food. He now understood her courage, her determination, and her deep love for her mother. Their silent partnership had grown stronger, and a bond of trust and friendship was forming. Every evening, Tom left food bundles for Zira. She would arrive quietly, pick up the bundles, and sometimes leave small gifts in return. Zira did not have much, but the gifts were thoughtful: shiny stones, small herbs, or delicate flowers she had found growing in the tunnels. Tom smiled every time he received something from her. These simple gestures told him more than words ever could. Zira appreciated his help, and she wanted to give something back in her own way. One day, Tom decided to teach Zira a few simple human words. He showed her how to say thank you, please, and good. Zira repeated the words carefully, her small voice echoing in the quiet chamber. Mira watched with a soft smile, proud of her daughter's efforts. Tom encouraged Zira patiently, knowing that learning a new language could help her feel more confident and connected. Zira began to respond with small phrases whenever Tom was around. She would say food when pointing to the bundles or safe when she entered the chamber. It was not a complete language yet, but it was enough for them to communicate basic needs and feelings. Tom realized that language was just one part of connection. Trust, actions, and care could speak even louder. Over the next few weeks, the bond between Tom and Zira grew deeper. He noticed how carefully she moved through the tunnels, always aware of potential danger yet always determined to care for her mother. Her devotion reminded him of the bravery humans often show in protecting those they love. Tom felt proud that he could support her, and that his species' empathy and courage could make a real difference. One afternoon, Tom brought an extra bundle of food, including bread, fruits, and small seeds for Mira to plant. Zira looked at the bundle with surprise and delight. She had never seen seeds before, and the thought of growing something new for her mother made her eyes shine. Tom explained patiently how the seeds could grow into plants, providing fresh food over time. Zira listened carefully, her small fingers brushing the packets as if imagining the future harvest. Mira's health continued to improve steadily. She was no longer as weak, and she could sit comfortably for longer periods. She even helped Zira organize the chamber, placing food where it could be easily reached. Tom noticed the joy in both their eyes, and he realized that helping others was not only about providing resources, but also about restoring hope and independence. One evening, Tom entered the chamber with a small lantern. Zira had prepared a simple tray of food using some of the bundles he had brought. There were slices of bread, small pieces of fruit, and a few herbs arranged neatly. She handed it to him with a shy smile. Tom accepted the tray with gratitude. The gesture touched him deeply. Zira was learning that kindness could be returned, and he understood that their bond was growing beyond simple acts of help. As days passed, Tom continued to teach Zira a few more words. She learned to say help, friend, and mother. She began to combine the words into small sentences. "Help, mother," she would say when handing food to her mother, and friend Tom when offering a small gift. Mira watched with pride, smiling at the progress her daughter was making. Tom felt a warm satisfaction. Education, care, and patience could create connections that were stronger than fear or misunderstanding. The market also started to change subtly. Other humans, inspired by Tom's kindness, began leaving small supplies for Zira and Mira. Some left fruits, vegetables, or water without seeking recognition. The quiet acts of generosity created a network of support that Zira could rely on. Tom realized that humans had the ability to extend their care beyond their immediate circle, creating a community where kindness became the strongest bond. One morning, Zira surprised Tom with a small plant she had grown from the seeds he had given her. It was tiny, but it was healthy and vibrant. She held it carefully and offered it to him, pointing at the leaves and saying, "Grow." Tom accepted the plant with a smile, understanding the significance. Zira was not only learning to communicate, but also learning to nurture and share. Her courage and curiosity had blossomed alongside the plant. Tom also observed that Zira had begun to teach him in her own way. She would show him small herbs and flowers she had collected from the tunnels, explaining through gestures and simple words what they could be used for. Sometimes she guided him through safer paths in the tunnels that he had not noticed before. He realized that the bond was mutual. Humans could teach, but aliens could teach too. Knowledge, trust, and understanding were shared, creating a stronger relationship. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the colony, Tom and Zira sat quietly in the chamber. Mira was resting comfortably, smiling softly as she watched her daughter. Zira handed Tom a small stone she had polished, placing it in his hands with care. Tom felt the weight of the gesture. The stone was simple, but it represented gratitude, trust, and friendship. He looked at Zira and smiled, realizing that kindness had created a bond that transcended species. Over time, Tom noticed that Zira became more confident and independent. She still carried out her duties to care for her mother, but she did so with less fear. She accepted Tom's help gladly, understanding that teamwork and support did not mean weakness. She had learned that accepting help was a strength, not a burden. Tom felt proud of her progress, knowing that humans could inspire courage and trust even in the smallest of beings. Mira, too, had grown stronger. She could now manage small tasks herself, like arranging food or watering the small plants Zira had planted. Her eyes sparkled with gratitude for both her daughter and Tom. Together, the three of them had built a small world of care and mutual support. Tom realized that the simple acts of providing food and teaching words had created something far greater than he had expected. The bond between human and alien, teacher and student, helper and cared for, had grown into something deeper than friendship. It was a connection built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. Tom reflected on how this bond had formed through acts of courage, patience, and empathy. He knew that these qualities were what made humans strong and capable of building bridges across differences. One afternoon, Zira led Tom to a small corner of the tunnels he had never noticed before. She pointed to a cluster of flowers growing in the dim light. He realized she wanted to show him something beautiful she had discovered, something she could share with him. Tom smiled. This small gesture reminded him that humans and aliens could learn from each other, and that the universe was full of lessons for those who were willing to observe and care. As the days passed, Tom continued to bring food, water, and small supplies. Zira continued to learn simple words, communicate through gestures, and care for her mother. Mira continued to gain strength and independence. Together they created a small world of kindness, courage, and shared responsibility. Tom understood that this was the essence of what made humans special, the ability to help, to teach, and to inspire trust and hope. In the quiet moments, when the market was empty and the chamber was calm, Tom reflected on the journey so far. He had met Zira as a small, frightened alien girl who stole food to care for her mother. He had watched her courage, shared in her challenges, and offered support in the simplest ways. Over time, their bond had grown into a powerful connection that showed the strength of empathy, patience, and trust. The story of Zira, her mother Mira, and Tom was not just about survival. It was about the power of human kindness, the courage of a young alien girl, and the lessons that could be learned from caring for others. Tom realized that even small actions could create ripples of change, inspiring hope, trust, and a sense of community. The bond they had formed was more than friendship. It was a demonstration of how humans could shine even in the darkest corners of the universe. Months passed in Nova Colony, and life settled into a gentle rhythm. The twin moons rose in the sky each evening, casting silver light over the hills and tunnels. Mira, Zira's mother, had grown stronger. Her breathing was steady, her eyes sparkled with life, and she was able to sit and move around the chamber comfortably. Zira was healthier too. She moved with confidence and care, no longer the small, frightened girl who had risked the market's dangers for her mother's sake. Tom continued to help them, but now their bond had grown into a deep friendship built on trust, kindness, and mutual respect. One bright morning, Tom arrived at his stall and noticed Zira already waiting for him. She held a small tray carefully arranged with pieces of bread, fruits, and herbs. It was her way of showing gratitude. Tom smiled warmly. "Thank you, Zira," he said softly. "This is very kind of you." Zira's amber eyes glimmered and she nodded, her small hands holding the tray with pride. Mira watched from the chamber doorway, her smile reflecting relief and happiness. Tom had noticed that Zira had become more curious. She explored the tunnels carefully, pointing out plants, rocks, and herbs. She even began to experiment with small ways to prepare food. Tom encouraged her efforts, teaching her how to combine ingredients safely. Zira's joy in learning reminded him of the endless possibilities of growth when someone is cared for and supported. Every new skill she learned strengthened her confidence and her sense of hope. The community around them had changed quietly but meaningfully. Inspired by Tom's acts of kindness, other humans had started leaving food, clean water, and small supplies for Zira and Mira. The market had become a place of silent generosity. Even a few aliens who visited the colony joined in, offering their own small gifts. Tom realized that the small acts of kindness had grown into a ripple of support that touched many lives, proving the strength of empathy and humanity's ability to care across differences. One afternoon, Zira approached Tom with a small glowing stone she had polished carefully. She held it in her hands and looked at him with her bright amber eyes. "For you," she said, attempting the words she had learned. Tom accepted the stone, touched by the gesture. It was simple but meaningful. Zira's trust, friendship, and gratitude shone through the small gift. Tom realized that the bond they had built was more than assistance. It was a connection that symbolized hope, courage, and mutual care. Over time, Zira began to learn more human words. She could now form simple sentences: "Mother eat," "Thank Tom," and "Safe home." These small phrases allowed her to communicate more clearly, and Tom encouraged her progress. Mira, too, participated in their lessons, smiling whenever Zira tried to pronounce a word correctly. The chamber became a small place of learning, growth, and shared joy. Tom felt proud of the progress both Zira and Mira had made. The tunnels, once dangerous during storms, were now safer. Tom had helped reinforce weak sections and marked the safest paths. Zira guided her mother along these paths confidently, carrying small bundles of food without fear. Mira, feeling stronger and secure, could assist in arranging the supplies and caring for their small chamber garden. Together, the three of them had created a space that was not only safe but filled with warmth, love, and cooperation. One day, Tom suggested planting more seeds outside the chamber, where sunlight from small cracks could reach them. Zira's eyes sparkled with excitement. She helped dig small holes and plant the seeds while Mira watered them carefully. Tom explained how the plants would grow over time, providing fresh food. Zira listened closely, absorbing every detail. Together, they nurtured the seeds as they nurtured themselves, building a future full of hope and life. Word of Zira and her mother's story spread quietly through the colony. People admired the courage of a small alien girl caring for her mother, and they appreciated the kindness and bravery Tom had shown. The story inspired others to help those in need, creating a stronger sense of community. Humans had proven that empathy, courage, and care could unite different species and strengthen the bonds of society. One evening, Tom brought extra food bundles as usual. Zira had prepared a small meal in return. She offered it to him with a shy smile. Tom accepted the food and praised her efforts. "You have learned so much, Zira. You are very brave and kind," he said softly. Zira's amber eyes gleamed with pride. Mira looked at them both, feeling the warmth of love and friendship filling their small chamber. Zira's confidence continued to grow. She began exploring parts of the tunnels Tom had not shown her before, discovering new plants, herbs, and small crystals. She would share her findings with Tom, who encouraged her curiosity. Together, they experimented with new ways to use the herbs and plants to create meals, improve health, and make their living space more comfortable. Tom realized that learning and curiosity were part of the strength humans could inspire, even in alien companions. One morning, Tom noticed Zira sitting by the small chamber garden, carefully tending the plants they had grown together. Mira sat beside her, watching and occasionally helping. Tom approached quietly, holding a bundle of extra supplies. Zira turned and waved him over. "Help plant," she said, pointing to the empty soil patches. Tom smiled and joined her, planting seeds, watering the soil, and showing her how to space the plants evenly. Mira joined them, helping to press the soil gently around the seeds. As the days went by, the garden flourished. Fresh herbs, small fruits, and leafy vegetables grew, creating a miniature paradise in the tunnels. Zira and Mira could now supplement their meals with homegrown produce. Tom felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The garden was more than food. It was a symbol of their resilience, growth, and the bond they had formed together. One evening, as the twin moons rose over Nova Colony, Tom, Zira, and Mira sat quietly, enjoying a small meal in the chamber. Zira handed Tom a polished crystal she had found in the tunnels. "Friend," she said, smiling. Tom accepted it, understanding the message. It was a token of gratitude, trust, and love. Mira nodded approvingly, her eyes shining. In that moment, Tom realized that the bond they had built went beyond words or species. It was about care, courage, and connection. Months of shared effort, trust, and kindness had changed their lives. Mira was fully recovered. Zira was confident and curious, and Tom had found a purpose in helping them. The chamber had become a home, the garden a symbol of hope, and their friendship a lesson in the power of empathy. Humans had shown their strength not just in physical or mental abilities, but in their capacity to care, teach, and inspire trust. The colony itself had begun to reflect these values. Inspired by Tom's example, other humans and aliens quietly extended help to those in need. Supplies were shared, care was offered, and kindness became a quiet but powerful force. Tom understood that this was the true meaning of being human, the ability to shine through acts of courage, empathy, and generosity, inspiring others to do the same. One bright morning, Zira led Tom to a small tunnel exit she had discovered. Sunlight filtered through, touching the chamber garden. She pointed at the light and said, "Grow here." Tom smiled. He understood that Zira had learned to hope, to nurture, and to build a future. Mira joined them, smiling warmly. Together, they looked at the sunlight, the plants, and the possibilities ahead. Tom realized that the story of Zira and Mira was more than just survival. It was a story of courage, love, trust, and the power of humans to make a difference. He knew that one small act of kindness had grown into a bond that changed lives, inspired a community, and showed the best of humanity. Zira had risked everything for her mother, and in turn, humans had shown the strength of empathy and care. As the moons rose high over Nova Colony that night, Tom felt a sense of peace. Zira placed a small glowing stone in his hand. Mira reached out, holding her daughter's hand, and smiled. Tom knew that their lives were forever connected, and that the lessons of courage, kindness, and trust would continue to guide them. The storm had passed, the garden had grown, and a new beginning awaited them all. In the quiet chamber, filled with the warmth of food, the glow of the moons, and the strength of their bond, Tom, Zira, and Mira shared a simple truth: courage, empathy, and care were more powerful than fear, separation, or hardship. Humans had shown that by helping, teaching, and trusting, they could create hope and inspire life across worlds. The story of one small alien girl, her mother, and a human friend became a testament to the true strength of humanity, a strength that shines through kindness, bravery, and the bonds we build with one another.